Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lee and I like to talk about books, anime, Korean dramas, and fashion. So if you are into any of that, then please stick around. So I have a very large stack of books here. Most of these were read in October. September was a very slow reading month for me. I only got to 3 books, which that's okay. Life happens. I started grad school and work was busy. But then I read 5 books in the month of October. So I have 8 books that I want to talk about. And I'm just gonna jump right into it and get the ball rolling. We're gonna start from what books I read first and then go from there. I will also have my blog post linked down below where I have probably my thoughts more in an organized fashion. This is going to be a little bit more chaotic, so hang on tight. The first book that I want to talk about is a book I was so hyped about. It is Throttled by Lauren Asher. I am a huge Formula One fan. I watch Formula One every weekend. I have been watching it for years with my dad. He's got me into it when I was in high school, and it's gone from there. And seeing it become more popular with shows like Drive to Survive made me really excited that maybe books would be covering it too. And sadly, as an F1 fan, I was really disappointed by this book. Starting off, the races, they're not in order, and I know that that's like a small little detail, but as an F1 fan, it really hurt to read the races out of order and just, I can tell that the author did her research into F1, but I can tell she's not an F1 fan. There are little things like the difference between the team owner and the team principal. The team owner has nothing to actually do with how the team is run. They hire the team principal, and the team principal is the one who wears the headphones, talks to the drivers, and even then, most of the time, the team principal isn't the one talking to the drivers. So there were a couple of scenes in this that kind of drove me mad in terms of being an F1 fan. So I just wanted to get that part out of the way before I even talk about the content of this book. This felt like a fan fiction, and I know that a lot of people really like Lauren Asher, so I'm not gonna like throw her completely out the window and not read any of her books. I might try and read some of the other books in this series that are based off of the drivers who are my favorites. I know there's a Lewis Hamilton inspired book, and I love him. So I might read that one. I don't know if I'm going to read the whole series and like collect the whole series though. Noah is definitely the personality of an F1 driver. He's a playboy, he's a rich boy. I love my F1 boys, but they're walking red flags. That's all I gotta say. I couldn't stand Maya though. I really wanted to like her. I really, really did. I loved the idea though of her brother being in F1 and her like being involved in the sport because she grew up in it. However, there are a lot of really amazing female F1 content creators who have podcasts, host because their F1 Instagrams and TikToks blew up, and I kind of wished Maya had been like them. And a big thing for me was how immature she was in her, like, I'm gonna film my little YouTube vlogs and I'm following my brother around the world. Woo! It just felt very childish to me, and I had a really, really hard time connecting with her because of that. In terms of the writing, there were times where I really liked the writing style of this book, and then there were times where it felt like I was reading a book by someone else, and it felt very childish and young and not well polished, and I had a hard time with like how it switched between the two. In terms of contents with the relationship, I really liked the idea of this is my brother's rival on his team. Formula One teams have 2 drivers. There's always the number 1 driver who the team prioritizes, as well as the second driver who is usually younger and an up-and-coming driver, or it's a driver who used to be a number 1 driver in a different team and now has been dropped down to a second seat somewhere else. For example, Mercedes has Lewis Hamilton, who is an 8-time world champion, and then they have George Russell, who is a more younger, up-and-coming driver who will probably take the first position seat once Lewis Hamilton retires. So in that sense, I really liked that in this book. It felt very similar to like a Max Verstappen and Checo rivalry, with one of them having a sister. I just wish she had been a little bit more involved in the F1 scene, other than just, I'm here filming my little YouTube videos. And like, she kind of got into interviewing people, but she was doing it for her YouTube channel. It wasn't like she worked with like one of the like F1 broadcasting companies. So I just was a little bummed by that. I kind of wanted her to be more involved. Noah and Maya, though, their relationship was really weird to me, where like she at one point says, no, I'm not interested in you anymore, and then he sees her at a restaurant and pulls her to the side and kisses her. That felt like very out of pocket and out of nowhere, and honestly, if that were me, I would not want to be with that person. I've just told you no. That is my boundary. That is me saying no, and you just crossed it. So I don't know. I probably would rate this a 3 out of 5. Maybe a little lower, but I know a lot of people really love these series. Just as an F1 fan, I was disappointed. The next book that I read was Daughter of the Siren Queen, which is the second book to Daughter of the Pirate King. If you have not read the first book, please skip to the next book, because this will have spoilers from the first book. So we pick right back up where we left off in the first book, with Alosa taking over Raiden and his brother's ship and bringing them back with her to her father's keep. And this book really follows Alosa's story, both as a siren, and we see a lot more of her experience being a siren, as well as what she struggles with to maintain her human side. And we see a lot more of both her past with her dad and her relationship with her dad, as well as getting a little bit more information about her mom. Overall, for me, I definitely preferred the first book in this series. I felt like with this, you can see the peach tabs for me are any flirtation and romance. It was not heavy with that with her and Raiden. It was a lot of her feeling torn between her loyalties to her father, to her ship, to her crew, and to wanting to have love and wanting to be more normal in the sense, which I did like that kind of struggle for her and like following her on that. But it felt like the last little bit here, like the last 100 pages or so, it felt like it was very rushed on reconnecting her and Raiden, and I kind of just wish there had been like more tension scenes in the early chapters where they lock eyes and she gets nervous, or their hands touch and they blush and people start to be like, what are you two doing? But overall, really great series. I thought this ended in a really, really good place. So I'm happy with how the book ended. I was a little nervous about how this author was going to end the series. Now, there is another book being added to the series, but it will not follow Alosa and Raiden. So I'm curious to see where that goes and why that wouldn't just become a separate series in the same world. But authors all have their own plans. They all have their own things. So I will trust the process. The last book that I read in September, I picked up on a whim. I can't remember what other book I bought, but I bought a book and it was buy one, get one 50% off. So I just picked up one that I saw and I was like, I like the cover. It looks interesting. I think I've seen people talk about this, but not much. But it was The Nanny by Lana Ferguson. And I really liked this book. I was so shocked by how much I liked this. This is a single dad who's a chef, who is the head chef at a very famous restaurant, struggling to balance raising his daughter, and he's looking to hire an at-home nanny. Her mom passed away, but he and her mom were not married. They were just like, hey, we're better off as friends. Oh shit, we got pregnant. How are we going to handle this? We're just going to handle it like adults. And I actually really liked that aspect of the book, of having it be a very healthy relationship. And then the nanny comes in. So the dad is Aiden. Aiden is amazing. I think he's trying his best as a dad. He really tried to be there for his daughter Sophie, and he wanted to always do the best for her, but also wanted to continue following his dream of being a chef and make sure that he could be able to care and take care of Sophie to the best of his ability. So it was also really interesting to see his struggle of wanting to fall in love and also wanting to be a good dad. We also follow Cassie. Casey? I am so bad at ever knowing if it's one or the other. We're going with Cassie for this, for me. Cassie is in school. She's in grad school, and she loses her job, and she's trying to find work so she can be able to afford the rent on her place. Her best friend is the woman across the hall from her, whose name is Wanda. Wanda is my favorite character of all time. She is 80, she is sassy, and she is full of so many life's wisdoms, and I adore her. Sophie, the daughter, is also a really great character. I thought that could go either way, but the author used Sophie as a really great plot mover in so many ways, and I really appreciated that. She wasn't just like there as like a plot point of like, we need a kid to be able to have him be a single dad. They actually used Sophie to move the plot forward and reconnect things, and that was so good. But Cassie is, I'm not going to go into too much about Cassie's background because, one, because of what it is, and two, because I feel like it plays a large part in the book. But just overall, the writing in this blew my mind. I was so surprised that it was so well done and so beautiful. Like, the entire time I was reading it, I was just like, wow, I love this writing style. I need to read every book that this woman has ever written. I have looked into her books, so they are now being added to my TBR. But yeah, overall, this I'd say is a 4 out of 5 stars for me. This was the first single dad book that I have read, and it sent me down a rabbit hole. I didn't know this was a genre I needed more of in my life, but I need more of this in my life. So definitely we'll be looking into more of this. I'm honestly amazed that I read 5 books in October. I feel like all the books that I read were at the end of the month in like the last 3 days. But I did start the month off by reading the first book of A Magic Steeped in Poison. Before anything, I just need to talk about this book cover. I'm also reading the second book right now, so it's in my purse, but the second one is just as beautiful as the first. Honestly, I bought the whole set before picking up anything to read it, and I bought it also for the cover because this is beautiful, and I was so intrigued just by this. A Magic Steeped in Poison has assassins, magic tea, traditional Chinese tea ceremonies, a really kick-ass female lead character, a banished prince, and a tea serving magic competition, as well as a lot of royal court drama. There's a lot going on in this book, and it's so well written. It's so good. It's so beautiful. I loved, first of all, the concept of a fantasy book with magic tea, and I loved the way the author wrote about the use of the magic tea, because there were so many uses. There was getting into people's minds, getting into people's bodies to find their ailments. There was like animal imagery, there was steam, there was poison. It was so fascinating, and it had so many options, and it made me think, why haven't other books explored, like fantasy books, explored the world of magic and tea? Maybe they have and I just haven't like gotten into it, but I loved that. I know more about Japanese tea ceremonies, so it was also really interesting to read about that and just kind of note the differences. So that was really cool from my perspective. The love in this is not the main plot point, but I liked that a lot. This is also another YA book and a YA book series that I think would be really great for if like anyone who's a parent wants to read a book with their kid and like be able to talk about it. I feel like this is something that both adults and kids would be really interested in. So that's really cool because I feel like, I don't know, that's just something I think about from time to time. I love, love, love this book. So well written. I would give this a 4.5 stars. Yeah, I think I'm going to give this 4.5 stars. It does end on a cliffhanger. So keep that in mind. If you are someone who does not like cliffhangers like I do, buy both of them at the same time because I immediately picked up the second one and I'm now currently reading it. But I read this at the same time I was reading another book, and I feel like maybe it was the fact that like I had midterms and school was busy, or that both books were long, but I feel like it took me a long time to finish this book, even though I really enjoyed it. I didn't tab it as much as I usually do, but I did overall really enjoy this book. I'm gonna jump around out of order because I finished this much later, but the book I was reading at the same time as A Magic Steeped in Poison was Caraval, which is the first in the Caraval series. I am personally reading the Caraval series because I want to read Once Upon a Broken Heart, and I want to be informed on the world to the best of my knowledge before I read that. I already know I'm gonna like Once Upon a Broken Heart more than I like Caraval. It took me a really long time to get hooked. I think I only really got hooked when I got about halfway through Caraval. I was trying to figure out where. It might have been around day 4 of Caraval. I had a hard time getting hooked on this the way I wanted to. I really like the characters. I like the concept of Caraval with, you know, you have the ticket to the game, and the game is very much like a circus wonderland, Alice in Wonderland, but more on the circus kind of a feel, where Legend is the ringmaster controlling the whole thing. But I don't know, I just couldn't get super hooked. And I loved the characters. I loved Scarlet. I loved Julian. Julian has my whole frickin' heart. I have 1,000,001 frickin' questions though at the end of this, but I will sidebar that till I get to a spoiler section. This book follows Scarlet, who has been invited to the world of Caraval to play the game, and Julian accompanies her to the game with her sister Donatella, who ends up going missing immediately upon entering Caraval, and you find out that she is a part of the game and everyone is searching for Donatella, including Scarlet. I'm going to be reading Legend after I finish the second book for A Magic Steeped in Poison, but I don't think I'm going to like it because I don't love Donatella, and I'm hoping it will get me to like her a little bit more. Overall though, for Caraval, before I get to the spoilers, I would give this book probably a 4 out of 5, maybe a 3.5. The writing was really interesting. I thought the author did a good job of juggling lots of different plot points and bringing them all back around, if not in this book, hinting at how they will be answered in future books, which I really appreciated and I really enjoyed. Now for some spoilers. Julian gave a day of his life with no thought to her so she wouldn't lose 2 days on her life. He then took a stab wound to the chest from her father. Forget chivalry, I want a man like Julian. And the plot point where they were suddenly like, hey, by the way, he's been faking it the whole time. He's actually a part of the game. Mind blown. What? And that he's Legend's younger brother? Still mind blown. Mind blown. I am a little upset though that like we didn't get more sweet moments at the end with Julian as himself without playing the role of Julian with Scarlet to keep her going through the game. I have questions. Like, does she, like, I know that they have like their moment at the end, but like, I need more of that reconciliation, because like if that were me, if I were Scarlet, I'd be pissed. But also remembering all the things that he did for her, like I'd be conflicted. I'd be really conflicted. Also, I wanted to kill Donatella like every scene she was in. So Legend is going to be hard for me. I'm trying to have that's in my list of books for November, so we'll see how that goes. The last 3 books I have were very, very fast reads. One of them I read in a day. I read Wildfire in about 2 days, and Hannah Grace, you have done it once again. I thought that Icebreaker was going to be my favorite in the Maple Hills series. I was wrong. My boy Russ has my heart. I know Henry's book is next, but this boy has my heart and soul, and I need a man like Russ. Where do I get a man like Russ? Like, are you kidding me? He is a golden retriever puppy dog of a man who is awkward, but at the same time super flirty. I want him. I want him. And he's tall. He's like 6'5" or something crazy. I want him. I need him. Pull him out of this book and give him to me. This follows Russ and Aurora. We meet Russ very briefly in Icebreaker, which I was a little sad we don't get to see more of Russ, and I think that might be why a lot of people were not as hyped for this book. I know people really wanted Henry's book to come out first, which made me sad because Russ is my favorite, and I feel like he was very underappreciated in book 1. However, if you read Icebreaker, don't you worry. All of your favorite characters have amazing cameos in this book, and I feel like it's such a feel-good moment to see them both at the beginning and the end and in different like sprinkles throughout the book. Russ, my baby boy, and Aurora meet and they hook up one night at a party on campus before the end of the semester, and then coincidentally they both are camp counselors at the same summer camp. And not only are they both camp counselors at the same summer camp, they are both camp counselors of the same group of kids. I didn't think I was gonna love the camp idea, but I didn't feel like it was too camp heavy, but maybe that's also because I never went to summer camp. That summer camp to me is still kind of like a dreamy thing. Writing, I loved the writing in this, very similar to Icebreaker style. Plot-wise, I thought Russ and Aurora are a very mature couple. They both grow a lot together as a couple and individually, which I really, really liked. They both have their issues. They're both very honest with each other about the issues that they have, and they both help each other become more confident in themselves, confident in facing their issues, and facing them together when both of them have a past of facing their issues alone. Am I projecting because I also face my issues alone? Maybe. There's a moment in this where they both have a miscommunication and there is a slight, I don't know if I'd even call it a fight, I'd say like a tiff, and Aurora ends up coming back and being like, no, we are going to communicate and we are adults and I will not be a part of the miscommunication trope of rom-coms. And I loved that. I love having books where characters are real life adults and have real life conversations and do the hard thing by having these conversations, and they don't just dance around it with the plot. I thought that was a really great point. I'm super excited to read Henry's book, but I know nothing will top this. I just overall really love it. The only thing, and I know this is because Hannah Grace is an F1 fan, like a true, she watches the races. Girl, let's talk. I think you should write an F1 book after that other book. We should talk. Anyway, I think she threw in that like Aurora's dad owns an F1 team, which like had it be that he's super rich and he's never around, but at the same time, I think that was just like a plot point for herself, which like, you go girl, but it seemed like a little, it just kind of was like a randomly like thrown in there thing, but I don't know, maybe someday we'll get a book with a driver in Aurora's dad's F1 team. Overall though, I do give this book a 5-star, 6-star honestly review. This and Done and Dusted are my top 2 6-star read books of the year so far. So, and Luke Brooks and Russ have my heart. So what can I say? I thought I was gonna end up reading more Halloween books or more fantasy books in October. I guess I did with Caraval, Magic Steeped in Poison, this one, and the next book. I guess that's 4 out of my 8 books. That's pretty good. But I had wanted to read more Halloween books. I did have this book for a while on my shelf, and I actually put it off until now because I wanted to read it in the fall, and it was A Half a Soul. I liked Half a Soul. If everyone described it as Pride and Prejudice meets Howl's Moving Castle, I would say that is a very, very accurate description of this book. Add in a sprinkle bit more of like fae to it, and I think that you have this book. This book follows Theodora, who as a child finds out that her mother, who has passed, sold her soul, Theodora's soul, to a fae in order to get something. And you don't learn what that something is until later in the book, so I will leave it. Anyway, she's a little kid playing in the woods, and the fae comes to collect. And at the time, her cousin hands her a pair of like embroidery scissors that are iron, and she stabs the fae, so he's only able to take half her soul. So one of her eyes is gray, the other one has its color, and so because of that, she has all of her emotions very dulled. She doesn't really have emotions. She doesn't really get emotions the way that normal people do. And her cousin, she ends up living with her aunt and her cousin. And her cousin is entering her like debutante phase. I don't know what that is in like Pride and Prejudice language, but they go to London to find her cousin a man. She needs to get married. Her aunt is tired and wants her to get married to a rich man so she doesn't have to suffer. I have opinions on the aunt. I don't like the aunt. I think the cousin is too innocently naive. Other than that, I love Theodora. But while Theodora is with them, she meets Elias, who is the Howl wizard character who works for the king and the government, who fought in the kind of wizard war kind of a thing between England and France and helped them win, and la-di-da. Now he works for the king and he's trying to solve a mystery about why all of these children are falling asleep and not waking up. So she meets him and he's like, ooh, I want to know more about you. I don't normally want to know about people. And so he starts trying to help her figure out how to get the other half of her soul back. And she starts trying to help him figure out, why are all these kids falling asleep and not waking up? The banter in this book, really funny. The writing's good. I wasn't like blown away by it being like, oh my god, this is the most amazing piece of literature I've ever read, but it was really good overall. I don't love English period pieces. I'm not like a Pride and Prejudice fan. I'm a Howl's Moving Castle girl. But he is very much Howl. If you like Howl, you will like Elias the way that I do. He has golden eyes, long hair, wizard, sassy. He's Howl. I wouldn't say she's like Sophie. I'd say she is maybe like kind of like Calcifer. She's very sassy back to him, which I appreciate and I like, but she is level-headed. Overall, I'd give this book 4 stars. I like where it ended. There is a book that you can pick up that is the prequel where Elias is fighting in the war, but honestly, I'm not really interested in like that part, so I'm probably just gonna read Half a Soul and be done with it. Spoilers wise, the fact that he was part fae I thought was really interesting. End up at the end of the book moving and living the rest of their days in the fae world, and that her half of soul with all the emotions ends up making an orphanage for all of those kids who ended up their soul stayed in the fae world, I thought was really sweet. And I really liked how that part of it wrapped up really nicely in a sweet, but not overly fake sweet way. All right, we are on the last book. I am out of breath, I'm hot, and I gotta go to class after this. So we're gonna move quickly. This is the Hex. This is the only Halloween witchy kind of book I got to. There is a second book in this series and I will not be picking it up, and I'll get to that in the spoiler section. But this was really cute and charming. It follows Vivian, who is a witch who didn't really grow up as a witch until later in life when she started living with her aunt and her cousin. In college, she meets Reese, who is also a witch. Love a male witch in this book. I love the fact that he wasn't human and oblivious to the world of magic. He is from Wales, but his family founded the town that Vivian is in, so he came to the college for like a summer, and then they hook up, they have this fling, they fall in love, they're like, oh my god, this is amazing. He has to go back to Wales because his dad has announced, by the way, you have a betrothed. So Vivian, in a drunken state like every college girl should, curses him. That's right, she gets drunk on vodka and curses him. The common phrase in this book is do not mix magic and vodka, and yeah, I can agree with that. That's her aunt's like phrase and saying, and I think that's very solid for all forms of magic books. Later in life, Reese has to come back to the town to recharge his family's magical ley lines, and he discovers, oops, looks like your curse only works when I'm in this town for whatever reason. And oh, by the way, when I charged those ley lines, you're cursed your whole town on top of me. So this book follows the two of them reconnecting, dealing with the open ends and loose ends of their last relationship, as well as dealing with the curse and all of the funny little magical mayhaps that come along with it. My favorite magical like mayhap that happens is her cousin's cat learns to talk, and he likes to scream treats all the time at random moments, as well as call Reese a dickhead, and I found that so funny. I think that this was a super fast read. I mean, I read this like in no time. It was really fun and easy. Yeah, I guess I'll just get into spoilers. I didn't love the relationship of Reese and Vivian. I thought they were fine. I thought she kind of overreacted. I mean, he did say to her, hey, I have to go back to England and like sort out the whole betrothal thing because that just got dumped on me. But I do also understand her being like, what the heck, you have a betrothed? So I understand her being upset that he has this betrothed, but I feel like again, it's the miscommunication of you're young and not saying, hey, I'm in love with you. I don't want to be with this betrothal girl. I'm gonna go back and figure out what is going on, and then you and I will figure out what we're doing. But of course, he didn't reach back out to her, or maybe he tried and she blocked him. I don't know. It just seemed like a little weird on that part. Other than that, I guess the ending was okay. I'm a little bummed. The cousin throughout this book, is like kind of in a relationship with this woman who's the mayor, and then all of a sudden, like, the next book is about the cousin with Reese's brother, like, which also seems weird to me that like his brother and her cousin, but he and her end up together in the end of the book, and like what if they have kids, and then like what if they have kids? Like that seems like too close of bloodlines, but not, like, I don't know, it was a little weird to me of like a choice, like you couldn't have like written in like a friend for him or a friend for her, like I don't know, this was just my personal opinion. I kind of wanted a witchy lesbian romance book. If anybody knows of one of those, send it my way. All right, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. That is all 8 books that I read for the month of September and October. I do have a stack going for November. If you have any suggestions that I should add to my TBR list, please let me know. It is always growing and always ongoing. If you want more details on any of the books I mentioned, please check out that blog post, and there's also links to where you can find me elsewhere. So thanks so much.